see you in October.
What is the code?
The code. The code was a list of rules that came along from the Motion Picture Association that they put together in 1930 to kind of control what was being said and done in movies, because they were afraid the government was going to come in and censor them and take over the censorship of the movies if they didn't do it themselves. So they put this code together. The problem was nobody paid much attention to it.
Well, as you mentioned, the code was drafted in 1930. It wasn't really implemented until 1934 with Joseph Breen under Hayes's office at the MPAA. And in that period in between, we see this kind of heyday of these kind of pulpy movies, and there's a lot of double entendre, there's a lot of sexual innuendo and infidelity and crime and amorality. And so for that 4-year period where everybody seems to be talking about it, and right before they actually have to stop doing it, you see this flood of all these films, which are the subject of what we're going to be dealing with here.
Right. Let's talk about Red Dust. 1932, Clark Gable, Jean Harlow, Mary Astor, wonderful Mary Astor. Jean Harlow's a prostitute, basically. Mary Astor's a married lady fooling around with Gable, directed by Victor Fleming. Salty movie for 1932.
Well, Gable is, of course, a couple years away from the role that defined his career in Gone with the Wind.
Right. Already a huge star, though.
Big star. So this is Gable at the height of his kind of virility and sexual powers, and there's an edge to him, and he's almost feral in the movie in a way. And he kisses Mary Astor, who's married to her husband. He kisses her after he's carried her through the jungle. I mean, it's kind of a cliche, the storm and the rain and the lightning, and she's completely soaked, her clothes, and Gable, she's like, you can put me down now.
Yes.
And he's going to think that over, of course, for a second. And you know what's coming 50 miles away. Mary Astor, by the way, it's interesting how she's that rare actress where there's a kind of a naivete about her that later she turns on her head and kind of parodies that. You have her, after she kisses Gable, she looks up at him and says, we shouldn't have done that.
Right.
And later on in Maltese Falcon, you see Mary Astor playing the same notes, but you laugh when she says them. Because now you know she's soiled, she's a liar, and she's a cad. And
what a great actress, though.
What a wonderful actress. Interesting to see in her journey of her career, how that turns on its head.
It's interesting also, you talk about Gable. 20 years later, he played the same role in a remake, Magambo. And it's so interesting to see him playing the same role, but as an older gentleman.
Other things come into play in terms of the code, and they're probably a distant third behind violence and sex, or way behind violence, sex, and greed, and other immorality, but racism. And the Willie Fung character, you know, is kind of diminished in this piece in a kind of a silly, comical, the teeth and everything. And oh, Mr. Danny, you know, and all that.
And the Asians are portrayed as kind of sneaky, you know, not totally trustworthy characters.
Yeah, they're not solid characters. Right. And the other thing about this is Harlow, and I'd love you to talk about Harlow, because, well, Harlow to me is, there aren't a lot of women who Harlow was a beautiful woman, and yet her quality was so, she wasn't a conventional leading lady. She was this kind of screwball.
And brassy. Yeah. Brassy.
Very colorful.
Yeah.
And very three-dimensional, and even you know, silly in some ways.
But she was so down to earth, you kind of really liked her. You know, as brassy as she was and as loose moral.
She was available.
She
didn't have a kind of icy unavailability.
You still liked her. She seemed like a good egg. But a good movie, Red Dust. Let's have a look at it. Here, based on a play by Wilson Collison and a movie directed by Victor Fleming. From MGM in 1932, Red Dust.